I need to
Very
fill out
important. Whatever
mail.
wanted everyone to
In
know.
New York, they need to be postmarked by November 4th, November 5th, whatever election day is.
Like, oh, it's
Okay,
late.
well, in Texas, Ziesel missed the deadline for Texas, but in New York.
You should know we're live.
Postmarked by election. But you can check your ballot
Oh, I did it.
from your phone. I'm gonna decide whose name I'm gonna write it on the
Gonna learn the
ballot.
Sicha. Called a true joyous week. This week is called the true joyous week. As opposed to Horatius, which is called a joyous week, but not a true joyous week. The Shavua Sameach Abulachi Sameach. Parshas Noach is Atzev. It's a sad parsha because of the Mabul, but it ends on a good note. And Lech Lecha is through and through happy because we're living with Avram Avinu. It's the title of the Sicha. True joyous week. Before we get to the Sicha, who else is here? You know, if everyone, what's her name?
Amy, Visi.
Yeah.
No, Ziesel went to go meet with Mrs. Klein,
She went to what?
meet with Mrs. Klein.
Oh, okay. Oh, what else missing? Oh.
That's Amy's left.
She went to be a showman.
Different. And this is one of
You know that I was coming today instead of tomorrow?
Yeah, they let us know.
I wonder.
the- yeah, got a PSA.
Get the message. So before we get to the Sikha, as usual, mention something on the parsha. That is, Ramabino tells Sarah, tell these people that you're my sister instead of being my wife, because otherwise my life's in danger. They're going to take you, and they're not going to want to take a woman who's married, so they'll solve the problem by eliminating me. The obvious question is, why would they care if she's married? If they don't care about murder, why would they care about adultery? They're not going to they're going to kill me because I'm their husband, obviously. That's the obvious question you have to ask. Yeah.
A husband would, in theory, die protecting his wife, but a brother isn't really a threat.
No, I understand that, but I'm saying, but why would Avram Avinu think that they'll kill him? Why is his life in danger? I'm not asking why. I understand the sister thing, but what are you afraid of? That they're going to kill me? Why? Because they would dare not commit the sin of adultery. They'll commit murder, that's okay. But they won't commit the sin of adultery? Why is murder less of a crime than adultery? Yes.
Well, I actually had my notes last year, so I kind of cheated.
Wow.
It says
You're-
one kill versus a continuous sin.
That's the first time it ever happened. I never had this experience where someone remembers what we did last year, even through notes. You were here last year, I forgot about that.
So,
If I only
I
would have
guess
known.
by one kill, it's like one action.
Okay, so
versus
here's,
every
okay,
time you're doing
very,
it.
very good. Let me just tell you, fill in something here. There's an enigmatic medrash plia. It's like a riddle. It teases you. It says something, and then what in the world does this have to do with that? The medrash says, from the story with Avram Avinu saying, please say you're my sister and not my wife, we learn that you're allowed to slaughter an animal on Shabbos, which is normally forbidden, for a sick person who's about to die, if you won't have food. What does one thing have to do with the other? It's called a medrash plia, a medrash that's enigmatic, weird, and puzzling. You remember that part too?
I think so. It says just like eating non-kosher to save a life versus eating cooked kosher on Shabbos.
What if you have a choice? It's Shabbos. Okay, you got it. You have a choice on Shabbos. There's kosher food, but the kosher animal, you have to slaughter it, which is a malacha on Shabbos. You're gonna violate the Shabbos to eat the kosher food, but you have another alternative. How about there's treif meat right in front of you? You don't have to cook. It's fresh and it's cooked already. What would you rather do? What should you do if you have a choice? Eating treif or violating the Shabbos? Person's very sick. Which one do you pick? The answer is violate the Shabbos. But why? Violating the Shabbos is a more serious crime than eating non-kosher. But it says violating the Shabbos is a loss of life. Eating non-kosher is not. So why would we do that? The answer is, as you said, because when you violate Shabbos, it's a one-time violation. That's it. You slaughter and that's it. Whereas when you take a bite, every single bite is another violation. So you're continuously violating the law. Likewise with Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu felt that a one-time murder, a one-time sin they'll do. But to continue to live with a woman who's married, ongoing sin, they were afraid of that. So just like we see that Avraham Avinu figured that they'd rather do a one-time crime, even though it's a pretty serious crime, murder, rather than a continuous crime of living with a woman who's married, they decided, let's pick the murder. Likewise, we learn from there that you have a choice to do a one-time sin, even though it's a very serious crime, desecrating the Shabbos to save a life. Pick that over eating a bite after a bite of non-kosher food, even though that's a lesser crime. The Rebbe, however, I don't know if I said this last year, throws a monkey wrench into this whole explanation. Why? Because murder and adultery are both equal execution. Person who murders somebody, person who commits adultery, his life is taken. Crime. It's a crime that has capital punishment. They're both equal. Right? Whereas eating non-kosher is much less, there's no death penalty for eating non-kosher. If it's just, depends what you're eating, but if you're eating meat that hasn't been slaughtered, and that kosher animal hasn't been slaughtered, or even if you're eating chazer, there's no death penalty for that. So how would you know that even though it's a much lesser crime, I would still rather not do that crime and pick the bigger crime, a one-time bigger crime, rather than a smaller crime 1,000,000 times? Only if the crimes are equal, like murder and adultery are equal, but eating non-kosher and violating the Shabbos is not equal. So how would you know that even though violating the Shabbos is more serious, we'd rather do that more serious crime, because it's only one time, than doing the less serious crime a lot of times? How do you know that? So the Rebbe explains that there's a possibility for adultery also to be less serious than murder. In those days, before the Torah was given, if someone stole a woman away from her husband, even though it's still considered a crime to have relations with her, it's less there's no death penalty for that. Because once the husband, those days before the Torah was given, there's no divorce document. Just like today, how does a non-Jew become free to marry? A woman who's married, there's no halacha of a divorce. She doesn't need a divorce. No, by non-Jews. Non-Jews that are married, how do they become no longer married? They don't need a divorce. They don't need no civil divorce either. Torah does not require a civil divorce. Torah just says, as long as they decide they're parting, they're divorced. No document is needed. I mean, you want to prove it, okay, but what actually creates the divorce is not a divorce document, not civil. There's no Torah document. There's no get. There's no civil divorce. They decide they're not living with each other anymore. Before the Torah was given, in Avraham Avinu's time, if a woman was taken by force, captured, hostage, the husband would give up hope of ever seeing her again. At least the Egyptians felt that way. And then the halacha would be that if the husband gives up hope, it's not considered complete adultery. It's sort of semi-adultery, and there would be a death penalty for it. And yet, they chose murder, even though murder is a death penalty, rather than continuously living with a woman that you should be living with, even though there's no death penalty for it. That's an addition which I didn't say last year. Okay. I want to throw one more thing in before we go into the Sichos. Why would Avraham Avinu say, I mean, please say you're my sister, so they'll take you. That doesn't bother me. So I will live and I will get a lot of money. They'll offer me an abundance of money. I mean, when it comes to a situation where your wife is about to be abducted, captured as a hostage, you're thinking about your own wealth.
Didn't he know that she was on such a high level that
Yes.
questioning?
So the Zohar says that Avram knew that they're not going to be able to touch her. But still, I mean, Okay, but still, there's pain for her to be taken, even though they're not going to succeed in doing anything with her. And why is he into the money business? So I will, I will through you, I will be given a lot of wealth. Why is he focusing on wealth? So the Rebbe says he was given a blessing by Hashem in the beginning of the parsha. I will bless you. And Rashi says with a lot of money. He didn't see any roadway through the laws of nature, how it's going to happen. How is it going to materialize? How am I going to become rich? Avraham Avinu knew what the Zohar says. That a man, gotta be careful when I say this, a man becomes rich through the sichos of his wife. Wealth comes through your wife. Avraham figured, perfect scenario over here. Through her, because I am supposedly her brother, they will make me wealthy. That's what Hashem probably meant. Hashem probably meant, don't worry about her, she'll be okay. She's a tzaddikus, they won't touch her. But the means, how are you going to become rich? We all know it's through your wife, through her abduction. You, Avram, the husband, will become rich. Because Avram was looking for ways of how to fulfill the blessing. How will Hashem's blessing materialize? Another question before we get yes.
This is the beginning of the parsha?
Yeah.
And this is before the whole box situation? Sorry, I'm getting a box.
Well, the box was before she was abducted. They opened the box, they found her.
Oh,
Yeah. It reminds me of something. It reminds me of a story. My father was given a shlichus by the Rebbe. On his way, my father was sent by the previous Rebbe who was in Poland. That's what Poland sent. So there were 9 American boys and 1 woman, a couple. 10, 9 Bachrim, one married man with his wife that actually left New York and went to Poland, started a yeshiva there. The woman obviously was not involved in the yeshiva, but she came with her husband. He was married already. Her father was one of the older ones, and on their way to Poland, they passed through France. The Rebbe was in France. And the Rebbe said, I want to give you drugs, kosher drugs meaning medications for my father-in-law, for the Rebbe. You gotta smuggle it, put it in your suitcase. That is dangerous. Going through the German border with illegal stuff. The Germans were, as where this is right before the war started. Right, mamish, a week before the war started. So he was a shliach of our Rebbe to give the drugs to the previous Rebbe. Imagine being in between 2 Rebbes. He was very nervous. The Rebbe sending me, obviously, he's not going to threaten my life, so he had the strength to control mind over heart. As he passes through the border, a miracle happened. They opened his suitcase. They opened 3 suitcases. They found it. And in German, they say to my father, "Was ist das? Was ist das?" My father said, in German accent, "Das ist gar nicht. It's nothing." That's a garnet, yeah, like sure, really, yes, yeah, das ist gar nicht. And like Bilam, who couldn't control what his mouth said, they closed the suitcase. Guy, go. It didn't make any sense. They caught my father. They caught him. Would have been a miracle if they would have caught him, but they did catch him. They caught him red-handed, and they were screaming at him. And they closed the suitcase and told him to go. You're okay, fine. Remind this whole story with the suitcase there. Off the subject completely. One more thing. I just realized you're beautiful. Rafi has. I realize that your beauty is in jeopardy because these people are immoral. But there's another interesting shot that Rafi does not give. Avraham Avinu did not realize. What he realized for the first time is how her physical beauty and her spiritual beauty are not. He always saw her spiritual beauty, and he didn't focus on the physical beauty because there was so much beauty spiritually that it overshadowed. Says, coming here in this depraved land, I'm beginning to attach myself to your physical beauty, bereft without the spiritual beauty. I'm noticing something physical. It's lowering. I'm feeling my spirituality is being lowered. I'm noticing things I never noticed before. When I looked at you, I saw a holy person. Oh, listen, the face was beautiful too, but it was a manifestation of her spiritual beauty. You understand what I'm saying? The physical beauty was like perfect fit with her. It was the outer case of the spiritual beauty. Now I don't see, I just see one, I just see the physical beauty. Fragmentation between the spiritual and the physical. All caused by being in a depraved land like Egypt. Now we go to the Sichos. Okay. A truly joyous week. It's in English, it's in Yiddish. I'm not going to read the Yiddish. It's Yiddish on the side, but it's Hebrew. I gave you Hebrew because you speak Hebrew. So there's a well-known adage, famous adage, a word, that's said many times. Whom by my revered father-in-law, the Rebbe Rayatz. Rayatz stands for Yosef Yitzchak. He cited this adage in the name of his father, the Rebbe Rashab. What did he say? Bereshis is a joyous parsha. God brought the world and all that he created into existence. Wow. Fascinating phenomenon. Yesh me'ayin, a world exists out of nothing. And of course, the Sedra talks about how wonderful each day was. Hine tov me'od. Tov, ayar, or light, a radiance that we can't even imagine how radiant it was. Blissful. The world was full of brachas, blessings, divine, benevolence, and holiness was felt in the world. That was Bereshis. So Bereshis is a parsha that's very happy and beautiful, but its conclusion is not so pleasant. Nevertheless, as a whole, the parsha is joyous. Anyone have a question on this? Bereshis is joyous, even though you could ask a very obvious question. How is Bereshis joyous? The sin, Adam Chava sin, the snake over there mixed in. Cain kills Hevel. Oh, wonderful. Very, very, very joyous parsha. First murder. Brothers can't get along. Big knockoffs from children, huh? Yeah, I'm going to answer it. This is a question that someone asked me on the Sichos. Not here, somewhere else. So I think the answer is very simple. The Rebbe is not discussing, of course, mankind can choose to do wrong. Adam and Chava chose to do wrong. They had free choice. Cain chose. But the world as it is from Hashem's point of view, the way Hashem created it was perfect, beautiful, wonderful. We messed it up. So the beauty, the simcha, the joy is, wow, look at the world that Hashem created. And he's saying every single day, it's wonderful. Whatever I did came out perfect. That's the answer. So the fact that we messed up is from our point, from our side, but not from his side. Noah is the parsha of the flood. Who brought the flood? God brought the flood. It's gloomy, it's doomy, doom and gloom. Disheartening week. Society perishes. But it ends on a cheerful note because our patriarch, Avraham Avinu, was born. That's the happy part. The truly joyous week is the parsha of Lech Lecha. Throughout the entire week, we live with Avraham, our forefather, our patriarch. Now, the Rebbe's words, the true joyous week is Lech Lecha, indicates that even the passage associated with the end of the week of Parshas Noah, which does speak about Avram's birth, is not truly joyous. Avram was born. Why isn't that fully joyous? Why is it part of Noah and not really? So it's interesting that even though Avram was born in Parshas Noah at the end, that doesn't really bring true happiness. Avram's birth is not truly joyous, as is the week of Parshas Lech Lecha, where all the events contained in one Torah reading are interrelated. So if Noah has a sad center, then even the happy part is also connected to the sad part. Since the parsha as a whole is disheartening, there's something lacking in the joy at the end of the parsha. That's as far as Noah is concerned. Likewise with Bereshis. Similarly, with regard to Bereshis, even though as a whole it is next page, a joyful parsha, since its conclusion is not, so it's a joy, but since its conclusion is not so pleasant, genuine joy is lacking in the entire parsha. This calls for further explanation. Seemingly, the content of the parsha should have been structured differently. Wouldn't it make sense to have the sad part of Bereshis, where Hashem is saying, I regret That's good. I regret creating the world. I like Noah, but the world is messed up. I'm going to have to destroy it. That's the end of Rashid. Wouldn't that belong in the beginning of Noah? Let Rashid end on a happy note. Let Noah, with the flood, with Hashem's thought of destroying the world, be in one parsha. Why does the end of one parsha end with happiness? And then Noah's ending, Noah is a melancholy parsha. So let's put the end of Noah, which talks about Avraham Avinu's birth, together with Lech Lecha. But it's not put that way. It's interesting. Why not? That's the question. This calls for further explanation. Seemingly, the content of the parsha should have been structured differently. Since, as a whole, Parshas Bereshit is a joyous parsha, the Chag is a parsha Sameach, and Parshas Noach as a whole is Lo Sameach, disheartening, weak, not so pleasant, not so pleasant conclusion. So then the question is, the not so pleasant conclusion of Parshas Bereshit should have logically been placed at the beginning of Parshas Noach. And the cheerful conclusion, the end of Parshas Noach, the birth of Avram, should logically have been the beginning of Parshas Lech Lecha. Why is it set up that way? Okay. Counting to 3. We're going to see the number 3 is very important. How the first 3 parshas of the Chumash represent 3 different perspectives. One coming, how God sees the world as it's created by the Creator, mankind working on refining oneself, but of course, only a limited type of refinery, because we're limited people. So there's still a gap between us and our Creator, and then the ultimate bond between us humans, creations, with the Creator. And the Rebbe will soon give later on the Sichos a very interesting analogy with a teacher and a student. And we're going to see there are actually 4 levels. There's the pre-Noach, there's the Noach, which is the before any preparation for Matan Torah. Then there is Avraham Avinu, who started paving the way for the incredible bond that took place between the spiritual realm and the physical realm, and then Matan Torah itself. So there's the world of branches before Noah. Noah is the beginning where mankind is starting to, on its own, refine itself. Then there is Avraham Avinu's avoda, Lech Lecha, preparing the world for Matan Torah, and then there's Matan Torah. We'll soon see what these are, what these represent. So the Rebbe says like this: above can be understood to understand why the end of Rashis ends on a sad note, and the end of Noach ends on a happy note, but not true happiness, will be understood based on the following. Each of these 3 Torah readings represents a distinct phase in the world's spiritual history. As mentioned, the superior virtue of Parshas Lech Lecha over the preceding 2 parshas is that throughout the entire week we live with Avraham Avinu, who's our forefather. As is well known, the spiritual history of the world is divided into 2,000 years. This is very important. The Gemara says like this in Masechta Avodah Zarah, practically called Avodah Zarah, 9a or 9b, page 9, that the world, the 6,000 years of creation, are divided into 3 eras. First 2,000 years, the middle 2,000 years, and the last 2,000 years, which we're in right now. The first 2,000 years, which ended when Avraham Avinu was 52 years old. Avraham was born in 1948, the real 1948, from the beginning of creation. 1,948 years from the beginning of creation, that's Avraham's birth. Count 52 years, that's the year 2000. Until that year 2000, the world was chaotic. Why is it chaotic? What's the purpose? Why? Everything seems to be with no reason, no rhyme and reason. Hashem was so kind, and then, there are a lot of questions we have no answers for. And that's what chaos is. Chaos is when we don't see where it's heading. Chaos means when something is wild, what's the purpose? The next 2,000 years, until the year 2000 to 4000, called the 2,000 years of Torah. What does that mean? That Torah flourished during those 2,000 years. Of course, Matan Torah happened in the year 2448, in the middle of the 3rd millennium. And we had a lot of expansion of Torah learning throughout the 3rd millennium and till the end of the 4th millennium. But 170, when did the actual second Beis Hamikdash, when was it destroyed? In the year 3928. I'm sorry, 3828, my mistake, 3828. 172 years before the end of the fourth millennium. That was exactly the time when the Mishnah by Rebbe was codified. And that's when all the Torah, gigantic Torah expansion started going down. Jews were exiled, things started going very, down, and Torah learning was compromised. So exactly when, at the closing of the Mishnah, in the time of Rebbe and his students, which is 172 years after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, in the year 4000 exactly, is when Torah went. And now we're waiting for Mashiach. From the year 4000 until the end of the 2000 years, that's called the era of Mashiach, and whatever follows, Chias HaMesim. So, having said that, what do we know? The era of the two millenniums of Torah begin with Avram Avinu. He was 52 years old. What did he do when he was 52? He started being Mekara people. Avram was Megayer, converted, whatever conversion meant then, to the men, and Sarah converted the women. But their conversion was not complete until Avram took them with him. Later on, when he left Paran to go to Eretz Yisrael, that's when the era of Torah, the era of Avram Avinu, is paving the way for Matan Torah began. Let's see it inside here. As is well known, the spiritual history of the world is divided into three 2,000-year eras: 2 millennia of chaos, 2 millennia of Torah, and 2 millennia of preparations for and including the era of Mashiach. The 2 millennia of Torah began with Avram's efforts in spreading the awareness of God. Avram was the first of the Avos, and he initiated the preparation for the giving of the Torah. Okay, that's this page. Next page, 121. As explained in the Midrash, the giving of the Torah began the connection of the higher spiritual realm with the lowly physical earth. In other words, we're able to do a mitzvah, and the object to do a mitzvah with was elevated through the actual mitzvah. That Gashmias can actually become sanctified. On that basis, it is logical to assume that the superior virtue of Parshas Lech Lecha, what makes Lech Lecha so happy and so special, not just living with Avram Avinu, true, but what's so special about living with Avram Avinu, which focuses entirely on our patriarch Abraham, Avram Avinu Takeh. What makes it special over the preceding two parashiyos has to do with its theme, uniting the spiritual and the physical, which Avram Avinu started that process. This theme serves to explain why Parshas Lech Lecha is interesting. It's the third Torah reading. What's three? What do we see by Matan Torah was given on the third month? The Torah is associated with three. We all know that from a lot of threes. What are the threes? Third month? No. What else? It was given on the third month of the year, Sivan. Hashem said 3 days in advance, prepare yourself for the third day. It was given to a people, Jewish people who are comprised of three, Kohen, Levi, Yisrael. Given Tanakh, Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, also three. By Moshe Rabbeinu, who is the third born in his family, and came from Shevet Levi, who was the third tribe. Moshe has 3 letters to his name. Levi has 3 letters to his name. A lot of threes. Why was the Torah given with the number? Why is Torah associated with the number 3? Because 3 represents peace. When you have 1, there's no room for peace. Because there's no room for any discord. 1 is not peace. When you have 2, there'll never be peace. With 2 can never get along unless there's a third party or a third power energy uniting the 2. Matan Torah symbolizes the bond, the synthesis between the physical world and the spiritual world. That began, and we'll soon see, with Avram Avinu. So what makes Avram Avinu's avodah special? Living with him, because he started the whole process of uniting the spiritual with the physical. This theme serves to explain why Parshas Lech Lecha is the third Torah reading, similar to the Torah as a whole, which is described as a threefold Torah. When the mystical configuration of the Sichos, the third middle vector, links the higher realms with the lower realms. We have Tiferes, for example. We have Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes. Tiferes is beautiful. Torah is called Tiferes because Tiferes is not extreme in the Chesed level or the Gevurah level. If you have too much Chesed, you can give to the wrong people. You're kind, and a guy comes, a drug addict comes to you, can you please give me some money? Oh, sure, give him $100, and you know what he buys with $100. you're not helping him. But if you're just, I love giving, it's not always good. Being too kind to students sometimes, spoiling them, letting them do what they want, or parents and children is not good. I love them, love. In the name of love, you can do more harm sometimes than good. Then there's Gevura. Gevura for sure has its limits. When you're a Gevura person, you can end up being very harsh and over harsh. But it needs, Ferris is a perfect blend of just the right balance, exactly what's needed. You know exactly the measure of chesed. A teacher knows exactly how to discipline the students and how to show love to them. Both. They feel the love and they feel the discipline. That's the Ferris. Before Torah was given, either it was free for all, do what you want, and no one gets punished. Even Cain and Hevel hardly got. Cain killed someone, first murderer. He wasn't punished right away. Took a long time. Too much chesed. Free for all. Gevura, no chance of even doing tshuva. What about you? One little thing, yeah, one little thought, boom. Severity. What's Torah? You're going to be punished, but you can do tshuva. Perfect. We're not going to over chesed you, over gevura. Everything's going to be the perfect balance. The Matan Torah is the perfect medium of uniting opposites in that sense also. Yaakov Avinu was the Tiferes. Avram was chesed. Avram, a dime a dozen, just be the car of everyone. But he ended up having a child who was not a very holy child, Ishmael. And Yitzchak had an Esav, also gevura, but gevura in a terrible way. So Yitzchak and Avram, their line didn't last. It wasn't eternal. But Yaakov had a perfect family. All of his children were tzaddikim. They had fights, but they were tzaddikim. Tzaddikim also fight. They were all righteous children. And he's called Israel. We come from him. He's the third father. We have a lot of parallels. First Beis Hamikdash, second Beis Hamikdash, third Beis Hamikdash. The third is the synthesis of the qualities of both. The first one was holier than the second one. Second one lasted longer. The third one will last forever and be just as holy or even holier than the first. So when you get to three, it always is take the two opposites and bind them together. So likewise with Parshas Lech Lecha, it's the third parsha. Therefore, it's the parsha that signifies paving the way for Matan Torah, for the ultimate bond between Gashmis and Ruchnius. And we'll soon see a lot of different parallels here. Hang on, don't leave, don't worry. You're going to see the secret is very, very interesting. Okay. Now, this theme serves, page 121, the second paragraph. This theme serves to explain why Parshas Lech Lecha, I'm sorry, we said that right. The third paragraph. Parshas Bereshis, the first parsha, focuses on the theme of creation. The creator, God, is the center of attraction. Hashem brings the world into being out of nothing. This expresses the power of the how. Amazing. The theme of Parshas Noach is what human beings can do. The second parsha is the refinement of the lower realm, accomplished with the divine service of Noah. Noah was the first one to withstand. He was around speaking Mr. Shelach, by the way. You know what Mr. Shelach was? Mr. Shelach, he was the tzaddik before Noah, pre-Noah. In Bereshis, he's mentioned. He lived 969 years. He lived 900, a little bit late, 969 years, almost 1,000 years. He lived the longest of anyone we know, showing he was riding on the clouds. He was not distracted because he was not living. He was not facing, he was oblivious of any corruption. Mr. Shelach. He was a tzaddik. Hashem delayed the Mabul. Held back the Mabul in his chus, even after he passed away. Hashem waited for the Shiva, for his 7 days of mourning to pass for the Mabul. He was a great tzaddik, but he had no interaction with the world. And he wasn't bothered by the corruption. He was living in his own cocoon. Shane likewise. Chanoch lived a short 300 some odd years. That's like 30 years today. A young man, 300 years. It goes by 10. 969 years is like 96 years today. So 300 years, he was on 300 years old when he passed away because God saw he's hanging on with a thin thread. A little longer, he'll fall. So he took him away. Noah was the first one that he was surrounded with real corrupt people. He was surrounded by, and didn't faze him one bit. He stood his ground and even told them off. How evil are you? And they laughed at him. They mocked him. You're building a table. Yeah, well, you're going to be safe, man. People can mock. And mockery is hard to, it's a terrible, it's a, difficult to withstand. Being ridiculed by everyone. He was a loner. I told you the story. I didn't tell you the story. But ever once, I forgot to tell you last week. Rabbi Gordon from Maplewood, New Jersey. Olav Shalom. He's Rabbi Gordon also. His son passed away too. Josh Gordon from California. His father lived in Maplewood, New Jersey, and he brought public school kids to the Rebbe in the 1950s. And the Rebbe picked on one kid, and he asked, well, these kids were recently least time hour kids. You know what that means? That they're 1 hour a week. They would be taken away from the public school and be taught Torah, the parsha. So the Rebbe picked on one kid. How do you like your Torah studies? Every Wednesday, 1 hour. I don't like it at all. Told the Rebbe. Why not? I don't know, because I don't want to do something that none of the kids in my block are doing. The Rebbe smiled and asked him, what are you learning? What part of the Torah? I'm learning the Bible. The Bible, you know how they talk. So the Rebbe said, what part of the Bible are you learning? Noah. And what happened in Noah? Well, there was a mabul, there was a flood. He said the English. There was a big flood. And what happened? Everyone perished. Wow. And what happened to Noah? Oh, he survived. Why? Because he was righteous. So the Rebbe smiled at him and said, can you imagine what happened to Noah if he would listen to all the boys on his block? Sometimes you got to be a loner. You got to, like, I've never dealt with a public school kid. It was so great to see the Rebbe's interaction. Our great Rebbe was a little child getting into his, a lot of stories like that. The Rebbe is so understanding, knows how to fit into the frame of mind of a child, of a non-religious child who doesn't like learning. So Noah had that, and he, even before the mabul, he was different. He was a tzaddik tamim, and he was worked on himself. He worked on himself. And in his generation, the mabul, which cleansed the world, like we mentioned last week, like a mikvah, it made the world, in its own limited way, somehow receptive to godliness on a lower level, obviously, not on a real true level of being one with God. That happens much later in time. But Noah's the first one, and we'll soon see a beautiful example that I will give with an analogy with a teacher and a student. Beautiful example, very interesting analogy. Different levels of relationship between a student and a teacher. So Noah was the first one. Let me show what I can do as a human being. Let me not ride on Hashem's highness. Let me show how I can work on myself. And the mabul followed and cleansed the world. That's the second parsha of Noah. So number 2, now we have the first parsha. Hashem show what he can do. Let me see what you can do. Let me see what mankind can do. That's parshas Noah. You with me? Hello. On the basis it can be understood, last paragraph, it can be understood why parshas Noah opens with the verse, these are the offsprings of Noah. What offspring? His good action, his mitzvos, his ma'asim tovim, that were his children. Doesn't mention his children right away. Because parshas Noah is not about Noah being born. Noah had no say in the matter. When Noah was born, he didn't ask Hashem, can I be born? Noah's birth is Hashem's making. So in Parshas Bereshis, which is all about God's doing, Hashem creating, he also created Noah. And guess what? Noah had a very good nature. Noah mosachein be'enei Hashem. Lama? He was a good natured person, but he hadn't worked on himself. It's all God's doing. You don't deserve a yasher koach. You have a good character. If you're born with a good character, some people are just so nice. I know people never get angry. You know people like that? Oh, me too. Never get angry. I can't even imagine this person getting. They're so sweet. They don't work on themselves. They're just sweet by nature. I'm sure. I'm talking to some of you. There's people that are very, very good, humble, and sweet, but they didn't work on themselves. They have a sweet nefesh bahamas, a sweet animal soul. By nature, they're very, very sweet. Noach was that way. He was a good person. He was a good-hearted person. Noach mosachein be'enei Hashem. What have you done? Nothing. It's all God's creation. Parshas Noach is Noach's avodah. Noach is working now. He's refining, working on himself. Working against the effects of corruption, against the influence of corruption. That's Parshas Noach. Yes.
Question on one of the footnotes.
You're ahead of us.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. But I want to try to finish with Sichos, which I don't think I'll ever do. Okay. Usually in English, we go much faster because, your language. Well, I also have questions on footnotes too. Maybe it's the same question. But let's go a little further. Okay. Noah was a righteous man so that's The focus of Parshas Noach is what Noach achieved through his divine service, which he didn't achieve in Parshas Noach by just being born and being a nice guy. Okay, look right to the next page. As Rashi emphasizes, the offspring of righteous are not their children, their physical children, but their good deeds. In contrast, the birth of Noach and even Noach's finding favor in God's eyes came not as a result of his divine service, but by virtue of an arousal from above. Hashem liked him. Solely on his initiative. It was all God's liking. It's a godly parsha, not a human parsha. Bereshis. Accordingly, their mention belongs in Parshas Bereshis. So when Noach is born, it's part of Bereshis. Noach's not doing anything. He's just born. He popped into the world. That's Hashem's doing, not his own doing. But Parshas Noach also ends with so Avram Avinu, when he's just born at the end of Parshas Noach, he's not doing his avodah as Avram. He's continuing Noach's life. Avram is not creating a bond between Ruchnis and Gashmis yet. We'll soon see, which he does in Lech Lecha. At the end of Noach, where Avram is just starting his avodah, he's really continuing where Noach left off. It's like the Chabad Rebbeim. Whenever a Rebbe was not yet Rebbe, even though he had a different, his shliach was a little different than the previous Rebbe, but Kolzman, the previous Rebbe, was still alive. The Rebbeim were a continuation of their predecessors. Until they became a Rebbe, then they started, something new. The Alter Rebbe was Chachma, Bittul Rebbe was Bina, Tzemach Tzedek was Das, Rebbe Marash was Netzach, and the Rebbe Rashab was Hoyd, the Frierdiker Rebbe was Yisoid. And someone asked the Rebbe, does that mean you're Malchus? And the Rebbe said yes. So each Rebbe had his own sphere, their own way of dealing with Yiddishkeit, with Yiddish, based on the generation. But as long as they're not yet Rebbe, they are pretty much following and trying to work on what their predecessors stand for. Likewise with Noach and Avram. Avram Avinu in Parshas Noach is not yet Avram Avinu. He's a continuation of Avram. By the same token, certain aspects of Avram's life are recounted specifically in Parshas Noach and not in Parshas Lech Lecha, because his divine service in preparing the giving of the Torah, the fusion of the spiritual and the physical, began with and continued after God's command to him, Lech Lecha, go out of yourself, transcend your nature. And we'll soon see what that means. It doesn't mean just go out geographically, it means go out of yourself, go beyond yourself, go beyond your even good habits. When he left Haran and journeyed to Eretz Yisrael, by contrast, on page 123, Avram's birth and those dimensions of his divine service that preceded the Lech Lecha, this journey were primarily a continuation and the consummation of the refinement and elevation of the lower realms that had begun with divine service of Noah. In other words, Noah, refining the world on a limited level, continued with Avram. But the bond, creating a bond between Ruchnis and Gashmis, did not start until Lech Lecha. Now, putting yourself on the line for someone who is unworthy. We have 3 different levels of prayer. How did Avram, just like there's spirituality and physicality, likewise there's lowly people and holy people. Can they combine? Can you unite the two? Can we see a bond? Noach, nothing. Noach is perfect, yes, does not become steadfast in his avodah, does not get influenced by corruption, tells them off, doesn't care if they laugh at him. But what did he do to them? Did he daven for them? No. He's just like a robot, Yes, boss, I will do what you say. I shall tell them to do tshuva. You shall do, God says you shall do tshuva. Get out of here. You shall do tshuva. And there was no heart. He just did what he had to do, fulfill God's Hashem's tivui, but there was no feeling of connection. He was just basically working on his own self-refinement. And there was no bond between him and the rest of the world out there. No bond whatsoever. Avram Avinu prayed. He asked Hashem, please forgive me for asking somebody, for begging, for interacting and pleading in behalf of not good people. I know you don't like them. The people of Sodom. 50, 45, 40, 35, 30. He kept on. If you find 10 tzaddikim in the city, will that be enough? Hashem says yes, but he couldn't find 10 tzaddikim. Only 8. So he didn't really daven for the people. He gave up. If there are no 10 tzaddikim, I give up. I'm not gonna. I rest my case. Avram gave up. Yes, he was better than Noach, but he wasn't the ultimate. Moshe Rabbeinu said to God, if you don't forgive those that sin with the golden calf, with the chayta egel, I will not erase my name. I will not stop. I demand you forgive the Jewish people, whoever sinned, not in my merit or in any other merit, in their own merit. Let them be saved. Why? They're corrupt. They're evil. Look what they just did. No explanation. They're Jews. I want them to be saved. I don't need to have tzaddikim influencing them. They are their own, with their own merits. So Moshe was the ultimate viewer, perspective of seeing how every single Jew, whether you're on the tachton level, on the elyon level, whether you're holy, spiritual, whether you're very, very, coarse and kind of vulgarous, he was able to see the bond between the highest and lowest level Jew. So that's seeing elyon and tachton within the Jewish people. Avram didn't match that. So why is he counted as the one who paved the way for Matan Torah? We're going to soon see. Talk about it. 123. Preparatory explanation is necessary to understand why Avram's divine service that constituted the preparation for the giving of the Torah began specifically after he received God's command, Lech Lecha, go out. The Midrash associates God's command, listen to this, Lech Lecha, with Avram's act. That what was the Lech Lecha really? Being able to sense other people's needs. Go out of yourself. Don't just do what you have to do because God told you. Don't be a robot. Noah had no wiggle room. He was just only do what he was told. He didn't have the improvising. Think ahead, it wasn't the time yet. Abraham was the first one who was able to break out of himself. Page 124. Of entreaty, begging Hashem for Rachmanis, for the inhabitants, for the people who live in Sodom. In that Avram differed from Noah, who did not entreat God's mercy for the generation destroyed by the flood. But here is the problem. This in itself seems to require explanation. Avram's plea to Hashem for Rachmanis, for mercy, for the people who lived in Sodom, merely comprised the request that they be saved, not in their own merit, in the merit of the righteous individuals who might have been living there. As the Zohar explains, since his entreaties were based on the mercy, on the merit of the righteous, when he heard that 10 righteous individuals were not to be found, he stopped his begging. He rested his case. In contrast, Moshe did not stop, defended the people who made the golden calf, much greater. Now, since in comparison to Moshe, Avram did not act entirely appropriately, so why was Avram's conduct in entreating God's mercy for the people of Sodom singled out and associated with God's command, Lech Lecha, as the initial stage of preparation? If you're preparing for Matan Torah, then why is Avram on a much lower level than Moshe? And the resolution, it can be understood. By the way, it's interesting, is these Rashis, Noach, Lech Lecha, and Matan Torah would be in a child's birth. Child's born, a baby is born, newborn. That's Rashis. The baby, boy or girl, advances from babyhood to boyhood or girlhood, at the age of 3, but still before chinuch. Can't be mechanech, a 2-year-old for mitzvahs. They're babies. I mean, they're not infants, but they're still too young. 6 years old, like boy or girl, is the age of chinuch when you start seriously doing mitzvahs with them. So chinuch, Avraham Avinu is like chinuch. Noach is like advancing from a newborn to babyhood. Understand? Rashis is an infant. Noach is where the child can talk already. You can start teaching him things, but based on a very limited level. Lech Lecha, Avraham Avinu, is when you start seriously doing all the mitzvahs with him. He sits in the sukkah if he's a boy, benches lulav. Besides tefillin, but you have to have a clean body, so you can't bake children of children, so you don't start with tefillin until he's close to bar mitzvah. Likewise with girls also. When do you start all the mitzvahs that they're obligated at the age of 6? That's Avraham Avinu. Chinuch. Matan Torah is like bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah. So there's infanthood, babyhood, boyhood or girlhood, bar or bas mitzvah. The Rebbe doesn't say this, but this would be a similar analogy. So the Rebbe is asking, why is Avram considered to be the pave away when he didn't do? He didn't daven for the sake of the Sodomites. He davened only in the merit of the tzaddikim. In resolution, it can be explained that the interaction of the higher spiritual realms and higher spiritual people with the lower material realms did not actually begin until the giving of the Torah. After all, Avraham Avinu is not the actual beginning of the Torah. He's only preparing, like the child who's going through training. Avram's divine service was merely a preparatory step. Therefore, his entreaties, his begging on behalf of the unworthy inhabitants of Stone were not on account of their own worthiness, because he couldn't see them as being worthy on their own merit, but in the merit of the righteous. He felt, but the righteous could have an influence on them. So maybe in that schus they should be saved. There's some kind of interaction between the righteous and the sinners, but only if they succeed, only if the righteous are there's enough righteous people that can affect the change. Thus, the three different patterns of conduct, that of Noah, Abraham, and Moshe, are characteristic of three eras in which 125 they lived. The era prior to the preparation for the giving of the Torah, the era in which the preparations took place, and the era of the giving of the Torah. During Noah's era, the era prior to the preparation for the giving of the Torah, the higher spiritual realms shared no connection with the lower. For this reason, Noah did not pray for the generation. He didn't feel any connection to them. He's on his own. He cares about what Hashem said to him: save the world, go into the teva, bring all the animals there, and that's it. He brought karbanos later on because he felt, why is God saying to bring 7 kosher animals instead of 2 non-kosher? Probably because Hashem wants me to bring a carbon. In fact, what did the carbon do? It triggered Hashem's oath: I will never destroy the world again, and the rainbow. So it's all part of his shlichus to save the world. When Noah gets drunk, by the way, at the end of the parsha, why did he get drunk? He was so happy. He wanted to give it, he wanted to thank Hashem, wanted to lose his mind and go beyond himself. But he wasn't told to do that. And he deviated from his singular one-arched approach of just following the rules, saving the world. And he deviated. It didn't do any good. So Noah, in fact, it's interesting when it talks about Noah's life, it says in singular. It doesn't say, and his days were 950 years, but his days was singular. His Noah's life was do what you're told, and that's it. There's no getting sidetracked, improvising. Just do what you're told. Very robotic. So he didn't go out of him. He never went out of himself. He was a good person, but that's where it ended. No connection to the people around him. Yeah. That's Noah. For this reason, Noah did not pray for the generation. In fact, that's why the Mabul is called May Noah. Noah's Mabul. A little bit because of him. He didn't affect the people, didn't change the people. So therefore the Mabul occurred. During the second era, that of Avram, when laying the groundwork for the interrelation between the higher spiritual and the lower, Avram prayed for the inhabitants. He did daven for them. He cared for them. He wasn't just single-minded about what he had to do. Without Hashem telling him, he decided on his own. He initiated, let me have a connection. Let me associate myself with the other people. Let me feel for them. They're going through, I don't want them to be destroyed. Please save them, at least in the merit of tzaddikim. Showing some kind of relationship between tachton, between the lower course people, sinners, and the holy people. He saw the holy people, the tzaddikim, will influence the Rishoyim. So there's a bond between spirituality and the physical, between the coarse people, the mundane type, and the spiritual people. We can connect the two. But still, the third era, that of Moshe, when the interrelation had already been accomplished, Moshe defended the very people who had made the golden calf themselves, not in the merit of tzaddikim. We don't need to use tzaddikim. They themselves have enough merit. How? They're Rishoyim. He saw the common denominator, how there's a bond between every single Jewish person. Regardless of their status, of their observance of Yiddishkeit, they're one. Not in the merit of tzaddikim. So this is a real bond. They're mamash. Every Jew, Tachton, Elyon, is all blend together, synthesized as one. Now the Rebbe gives this beautiful analogy which I want to share with you. What a teacher provides his student. Listen to this part here. It's my favorite part of the Sichos. The following analogy from everyday life can clarify the distinction between these three eras and the parallel distinction between the conduct of Noah, Abraham, and Moshe. It also highlights the difference between the era of Noah, in which the refinement of the world began, and the era chronicled in Parshas Bereshit, in which time the influx of divine energy conveyed to the world came about only on God's initiative. No one had on their own, any kind of thing going for them. They were riding on Hashem's shoulders. Despite the fact that there were several righteous individuals at the time who carried out divine service, but they were holy because they were able to go on to the divine train, as you say. They were holding on to the train and they were able to be righteous. But they themselves internally didn't have the power to really go through a change. Huh. Stand up. Missed you. Better late than ever.
Why do you feel that way?
I do feel that way. I don't lie.
Sorry.
I'd never lie. Okay. So you're doing good things. Okay, so we're on page 126 now. But I was going to give an analogy of describing the pre-Noah, Noah, Avram, Matan Torah in a teacher. Next page, 126. There are three methods that a teacher employs to instruct a student. One approach, the most basic, is when the teacher communicates a given concept to the student and nothing more. You have a great shiur, does not teach the student how to learn. Doesn't teach the skill how to figure things out on your own. Just gives a blinding wow. Explains things very well. And the student goes, say it over. Oh, it was a great shiur. Say it over with difficulty. But it was riding high, but did not learn at all a drop of zero skill of how to think on your own. Without the teacher, I'm lost. With the teacher, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. That's the voracious level. Pre-Noah. There's nothing going on with me. I'm just listening to a very nice shiur. I'm wow, I'm mesmerized, enamored, inspired, because I understand what he's explaining things. He or she is explaining things so clearly and so beautifully. Not here. That I just can't. I have to smile. It's a pleasure. But what happens after the shiur? Nothing. Garnished. Yeah, you got a few more ideas in your mind. And even that's not so clear. We're just wow, mesmerized with the beauty, and you couldn't really say it over to yourself. That's the voracious paradigm. Hashem has created the world, and wow, what a beautiful world. And you're hanging on to the Creator's light. But what's going on with yourself? Here it is. Listen, I'm riding high. I don't care about myself. That's the first stage. Is when the teacher communicates a given concept to the student and nothing more. He does not impart to him or her a way of thinking that would enable him or her to comprehend such concept of his own. B, a more comprehensive approach involves a teacher showing the student, not giving the highest level of sophisticated lesson, but working on how to open up the mind of the student, teaching them how to learn, and forfeiting the great shiur, simplifying it, making it easy, but teaching them how to figure things out on their own, not giving it away, not spoon feeding with information, getting them, putting your finger in their brain. Almost like I had a teacher like that. I had one of the teachers that I taught with, one of my colleagues, a lipster, was just that kind. He can make this dumbest guy become a mom smart. Yeah, no. It was incredible. Like, he would be sweating coming out of his shiur, but he would put so much effort on a freezing cold day. He'd come out sweating because he prepared the shiur for every single student. He learned the Gemara, but he's probably going to ask. I know this guy how he thinks. He's going to ask me this question. So what's the answer? I'll give him this answer, but he'll ask me a question on this answer. I'll give him that answer. Got it. Next, that's Shmuel. Now, how about Avram? Oh, Avram thinks different. He's going to probably ask me this question. He promised that 2 hours, and he was like in a different world, thinking of how to respond to every question. Who does that? Because he knew his students so well. He was called a Malamed Bar Koil, someone who could really affect the change in the level of the student. Put his finger inside the student's brain. Not giving such a incredible shiur. Pretty simple. But the skill of being a good teacher. That's number 2. That's the Noach approach, by the way. Where you're getting, why is it Noach and not higher than Lech Lecha? Because even if the student learns how to learn, on what level of intelligence does the student have already? Limited. Not going to doesn't compare to the brain of the incredible shiur the teacher gave. But on a student level, something changed. Now he has incorporated his own ability, albeit very limited, to think on his own. The third level is where the teacher creates a teacher, where the teacher explains things so well, not just the student learns how to learn, learns how to understand like the teacher understands. To bring the student to the level of the teacher. That's level number 3. But level number 3 is also missing something. We'll finish next week. Level number 4 is, what's missing in level number 3 between the bond of a teacher and a student? What can be better than that? You've mamish turned your student into a brilliant mind like yours. He thinks like you think. Got both. First of all, it has permeated, it penetrated him. And number 2, the sophistication of what's being taught, of what is in his mind is equal to the teacher. So what's missing? And the answer is only a student that has the capacity, that has the potential of getting smart will you teach. But if you see the student has no potential, you're going to give up. There are some times you're not going to succeed. Something's missing with that. I can't. So in fact, you have rules. You have to be a bar safer. You have to be an intelligent person to get into the shir. Then I'll change you. But and even after I change, and when do I affect you? Only after you've changed. But before the pre-change level, I can't get you there. I can only connect with you if I elevate you. So we'll have to finish the Sichos next week. I know I'm not finished it.
We have 2 more minutes.
1 minute.
That goes up 2 minutes early.
So, but the lit mentioned. Hold on. Okay. Let's see it in second quickly. B, a more comprehensive approach involves a teacher showing the student how to study. Okay. Each of these 2 methods possesses an advantage lacking the other. When speaking about the voracious level, developing a student's abilities, the second method is clearly more effective because in this manner, the teacher molds the student's thought processes, thereby enabling him or her to understand ideas on his or her own. Nonetheless, when it comes to the framing of the idea itself, where is the lesson more sophisticated? The first approach has a superior virtue. The conception that the student will grasp on his own through the way of thinking the teacher imparted to him is a lesser appreciation of the idea when compared to the clarity of the concept in the terms the teacher conveys to him. When the teacher speaks and is speaking powerful ideas, the student now has incredible ideas in his mind. The problem is that it hasn't changed his level of intelligence, just gave him some beautiful ideas in his mind. But there's a third method, we'll just finish one last paragraph. The third method of instruction, which incorporates the virtues of both of the first 2, where the teacher has such an encompassing effect on the student's mind that his way of thinking comes to resemble that of a teacher. You created a teacher. This enables a student to grasp lofty and abstract ideas on his own in a manner similar to that of his teacher. So now we have to go to page 127, but I guess we'll have to leave that for next week. And I will finish the Sichos next week, God willing, and start a Vayera Sichos, yes.
Like once the teacher's able to have the student grasp it, how is it lesser?
Because the student only, although he's learned how to learn, but on his low level, he can't think like teacher. I got something, but what I got is student baby level.
The teacher lowered himself to the student.
Right. So the student's not getting such a fascinating idea, it's getting, compromised, playful. But at least he put his finger in the kid's brain. The kid's starting to be able to figure things out on his own. But what level is the student on? That's Noah. Noah is, working on himself, but working on himself based on how a human being can work. He doesn't have the ability to go beyond himself. Lech Lecha is transcendence, which we'll see in Avraham Avinu. Yes, really.
Is the student putting his finger in the teacher's brain?
No, the teacher doesn't need to have any fingertips of brain.
Okay. I've never heard that expression before.
No, the teacher is the one who puts. Oh, Michael goes. When you get past them. So a little bit. Don't forget to vote. Very important. Still gonna vote for the right person. Deciding what's better for Jews, what's better for Israel. If you have a question, come to me. Give me the answer. The Rebbe never told anyone who to vote for, but he always wanted everyone to vote. In fact, there were Bachrim. You think Bachrim have to learn, right? And there were Bachrim who were missing from the base medrash. The Rebbe asked, "What's going on? Where are they?" And they said, "Well, they're voting." Very good, beautiful, but not in the middle of Seder.
Yeah, it's okay and everything, and I said, yeah, I'm like, oh, I think we're gonna have I'm like, yes, it's very similar, I'm very happy to have her. She talked about how last year when they did a program or something, and she asked me to go help her put up and put up, she could go. Well, for her.
She was like, what kind of salad should I make with it? And I was like, I don't know.
Well, party, she remembers it differently, and I told her that you make, oh, that's mine, sorry. I mean, I just wrote, I mean, anybody, but I wrote on it. And I said, thank you very much. No, thank you. And, she said that, a little bit helps. It was fine, it's fine, but I really helped, so she loved it.
Maybe about your outfit.
Actually, totally where.